Go ahead and start.
Awesome. Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Nick Mikesell. I am one of the trend and design managers here at Michaels, where I get to work with kids crafts, celebrations, which also includes party, gift wrap, ribbon, bakeware, and also fine arts. I personally am a fine artist and a designer. I went to the University of Toledo, go Rockets. Some of my favorite things that I love to draw are figure drawing, birds, and portraits too. There's a few examples of some of my art behind me. This class is called Intro to Drawing. We're going to be going over the basics of drawing. So everything here is going to be beginner level, starting out. We're going to talk about some just the materials primarily, focusing in on that, and then also going through some technique. And then I'm going to lead you through drawing this beautiful little hummingbird that you see right here. First couple things that I want to say is that drawing should be fun. And there's no wrong or right way to do it. So everybody, you should just draw what you like and enjoy it. That's what I like to do. I like to draw the things that I like. And the first thing that you should know is materials make a difference. A number 2 pencil, you can draw with it, sure, you can. But having the right materials, the right paper, and even coming down to the right sharpener will help you improve your drawing skills. So one of the things that, one of the first things I want to lead you through is your materials. There was a list that accompanied this class sign up. A couple of the things that were in that list were a beginner set of pencils, which are our Artist Loft pencils. Those are great for beginner. They're good quality, and they will help you get introduced and familiar with our main tool, which is the pencil. Also included in that were a eraser like this one, which is a rubber block eraser, a metal sharpener, but I also included in that list a canister sharpener as well. I personally prefer this one over the regular sharpener. I mean, this works fine. It's a little messy because the shavings kind of get everywhere. This one right here, this canister sharpener will capture all of those shavings and make your workspace a little bit cleaner. And also there were some blending sticks that were included. You had this bigger guy right here, which I'll get to in a second, and then these shorter pointy guys right here. There was also a kneaded eraser that was included in that set, which I'm holding in my hand right now, keeping it warm and pliable. I'll get into that a little bit more in a second too. So the first thing with pencils that you'll probably notice in that set, if you haven't already, is that on each one, and if you look right here, there is a letter and possibly a number associated with those letters. This particular one that I'm holding in my hand right now is an HB. Now the H, what that stands for is the hardness. And I don't want to get too nerdy right now about pencils, so just know the H stands for hardness. The B actually stands for blackness, so that's how dark and how soft your pencil lead weight is. And then, sorry, let me back up for a second. This does refer to your lead weight. So you'll notice on some of the other ones too, you'll notice there's a number before the, let me see if I can get up here a little bit closer. It's a little blurry. Sorry about that. But there's the 2B, and then on some of our H's, you have like the 2H, and that number goes up. So it goes 2H, 4H, 6H. And what that refers to in the case of the H's is the hardness of that lead. So the higher the number, the harder the lead. You might also discover as you continue on your journey here in drawing that some of your pencils might have an F on it. What F stands for is fine point. You don't have to worry about that too much. It just means that you can sharpen it to a really ultra fine point. Going back to our B's, with the 2B, you'll have like a 2B, a 4B, a 6B, an 8B. That refers, again, the higher the number, the softer the lead weight, and also the darker the lead can be, your marks become. So those are your pencils, and you'll see, one of the other things about pencils is that you want to make sure you keep them sharp when you're drawing. So let's talk about those sharpeners. Again, I saw there was in a chat electric sharpeners. I have one myself that I like to use. It's this one right here. This is an old Boston. It's a great pencil sharpener. Electric pencil sharpeners, of course, are great tools. This one in particular is a top loading pencil sharpener. I prefer the top loading just because if it's in the front, you kind of, when you put your pencil in there, you can kind of push it back as you're sharpening it. This one, it just sharpens right on the top, and it's great. It's not plugged in right now, but you can get a good pencil sharpener for about $10 to $20 within that range. So these handheld sharpeners right here, you have the little metal one that I referred to earlier, which I prefer using this canister one. If you don't have the canister one and you just have this regular handheld, I mean, hold it over, you can hold it over the top of your trash as you're sharpening it and you'll be fine. But with this, this little canister right here, you'll see there's two different hole openings. These, of course, the smaller hole opening is for the pencils that are included in this set. And when you go to sharpen your pencil, don't try to go too fast. You kind of want to do it slow, especially with some of the harder lead pencils, because they tend to crack and break, and that'll lead to a little bit of frustration. So you want to just kind of do it a little slow and check it out. And then you can see like this pencil, this sharpener gives a really nice point to the pencil. So keeping your pencil sharp, that's tip number one as you're drawing. Now let's talk about erasers. So erasers, the ones that were included in that set, you have this guy right here, which is the rubber block eraser. And then you have this guy here, who's what's called a kneaded eraser. This eraser here, this is the one you can use to erase large areas. Let's say you're drawing something and you just want to erase it. This is perfect for that, to erase and start over. Now the kneaded eraser, that has a different function. Like I said, I was keeping it in my hand to keep it warm. That keeps it nice and pliable, because when you work with these kneaded erasers that are cold and you haven't really warmed it up yet, they can be hard. And what you use a kneaded eraser for isn't necessarily to erase like you would completely erase with this rubber block eraser. What this is used for is to lighten. Let's say you've gone too dark in your drawing. You use this guy and you can push it down and you can see it lightens up your marks. So that's what you use this guy for. You can see it gets kind of a little bit dirty. Just do this a few times, pull it apart, and it's self-cleaning. Eventually though, you will have lead buildup and you will need to get a new one. Doing this also helps to soften the kneaded eraser back up. Okay. A couple other types of erasers that I like to use in my drawing are these click erasers. You can get these too at Michael's. There's different types of widths. This particular click eraser has a thicker diameter than this one, which is thinner, which you can use for making, oops, sorry. you can do finer erasing, erase lines, because you can also use an eraser as a drawing tool. And then this one is a little bit bigger, so you can get more erasing off. Or you can erase larger areas. My apologies there. Okay. And then next, what we're going to talk about is your paper, which is just as equally important. This pad that I put in your materials list, this is a great drawing pad. It's a level 2, which is a medium, is for the mid-level artists. A couple things that I want to call out on your drawing paper is the weight. This is a 70-pound weight, and that's really great. That's a good size drawing paper or weight paper to work with. In comparison, where you have your sheet of regular home printer paper, this is about a 20-pound weight paper. And you can notice the difference when you feel the weight of this particular, of the 70-pound paper as opposed to this, the printer copier paper that you have here. Can you draw on this paper? Yeah, you certainly can, but it doesn't hold up as well as a heavier weight paper, like the 70-pound sketch pad paper that, that is in this pad. There are some heavier weight papers, such as Bristol, that I like to use, and they come in all sorts of different textures. The surface texture can be smooth, it can be have a little bit of a tooth to it. This particular paper has a slight tooth to it that you can probably, if you picked it up, you can really feel it. Moving on to our blending sticks. So there were the 2 different types of blending sticks that were provided in that set. You have this bigger guy right here. This is called a tortillon. And it has points on both ends of it. It's basically tightly wrapped recycled paper. And you also have these smaller, finer point blending sticks here as well. So let me show you how to use these real quickly. I'm just going to make some marks right there. So with the tortillon, you can, or blending stub, this can be used to help shade. As you can see, it kind of blends, it picks up the graphite that is on the paper, and you can help kind of spread, push it around. These are nice because of the nice fat wide tips, so you can get these larger areas where you can do your blending. These little guys, the smaller blending sticks, these are perfect for doing smaller blending. And if you want to have precision in tighter areas, this is where you can use that to create those finer blends. So this is for a larger, wider blending area, and this is to do finer details. If you don't have tortillons or blending sticks, another thing you could use is you could use a Kleenex. Let me show you. I just so happen to have a Kleenex right here. Your normal Kleenex, you can bunch it up, create a somewhat of a point in there, and you can use that also. Now it's not going to be as fine and as precise as a tortillon or a blending stick, but as you can see, it still can make, you can still blend out your graphite and make it smoother. However, if you notice, this is just your regular Kleenex, you can see that it starts to leave like a residue as this starts to kind of fray. Okay. And then lastly, oh wait, I covered sharpeners already, never mind.
We do have some questions about materials, Nick, if we can, before we start drawing.
Sure.
So are graphite or mechanical pencils, can they use those?
Absolutely, that's a great question. I actually missed that because I have a couple of different mechanical pencils that I had over here on the side. Forgive me for missing that, but this is a traditional mechanical pencil. Yes, you can use this pencil to draw. This particular type of mechanical pencil with a very thin lead is great for doing precise, like if you're drawing something. I'm just going to start drawing. Like it gives you some really nice fine lines that you can use to draw with. It helps to really get some it helps with finding lines, but this really isn't the best for shading. I mean, I can get some shading in there, but I'm going to show some techniques to you all here in a second that you can achieve with your regular wood pencils. This mechanical pencil right here, this is a specialized drafting pencil. It comes with, has this thicker lead weight, and you need to use a pointer to draw with it. I don't recommend this for beginners, but I wanted to show you guys that these do exist, and yeah, you can draw with them. But we're going to focus here on the wood pencils. Any other questions?
Gotcha. Yeah, and are the blending sticks required?
They are not required, no. They just came in with the kit and with that drawing kit, and I wanted to make sure that I explained it to everybody so that they would understand.
Gotcha. Okay, and what are those made out of? Do you know?
They are made out of recycled paper.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a difference between drawing versus sketch paper?
Yes, actually, that is a good question. Some drawing papers, because the different drawing papers, like I was talking about Bristol, it's a heavier weight drawing paper. Let me show you. This is an old pad that I have. You can tell from that Strathmore yellow. But this is Bristol. I like working with this type of drawing paper because it's thicker. It holds up better to the different types of medium beside artistic mediums other than just pencil. I mean, you could use paint on this if you wanted to. Sometimes I like to use oil paint as a thin ground when I'm drawing as well, which is what I've kind of done on some of these drawings behind me.
Okay. And can they use Q-tips to blend if they don't have a blending stick?
Actually, that's great. That's also an additional great tool is a Q-tip. Sure.
Okay. And what about baby wipes?
I would not recommend using baby wipes. Use them to clean your hands, but don't put that on the paper. It's gonna smear.
Gotcha. And do you suggest thick or thin paper, or does it matter?
It all depends on what you're doing. For sketching, thin paper, like the thin paper, like that 20 pound, this 20 pound copier paper, I use it sometimes at work to sketch when I need to do something really quick. I'll just grab a bunch off the copier and keep it at my desk. And yeah, I use that just to sketch, to draw on, for sure.
Gotcha. And I think that's it for now. It looks like everybody is super excited to start drawing. Awesome.
I am too. But first we need to talk about some techniques before we get into drawing. So as advertised, what we're going to be drawing today is this hummingbird. Now, I pulled this image off of the internet and turned it into black and white and printed it out that way instead of working with a colored photo. Now, I understand some of you at home might not have that ability, but you can look up a black and white photo on the internet, whatever it is that you're going to draw, and use that as a reference image. Now, I recommend using a reference image for your drawing. Not to say that you can't work from your memory. Of course, if you just want to doodle something, that's great for just practicing some of these techniques that I'm going to show you. But for this exercise, I do recommend that you look at nature for your inspiration and for your drawing. I do. A lot of artists do. We have our photo reference libraries that we keep to use whenever we're coming up with our next greatest design. Okay. I see there was a question about the difference between charcoal pencils and sketching pencils. Yes, because that's a completely different, it's a different type of material for the lead. Charcoal is made from burnt burnt wood, whereas this is a lead that's more of not it's not the same as it would be for the charcoal. So you'd be able to feel the difference and also see the difference. Charcoal tends to have more of a matte finish, whereas these graphite leads have more of a shiny finish. Okay, so this is what we're going to draw today. Our friendly little hummingbird. I love drawing hummingbirds. They're fantastic. They're fun. They're just interesting animals. The first technique that I want to walk us through is line weight and what that means. So let me grab an HB pencil and sharpen it. HB is my favorite pencil to first start out with. It's my favorite weight of lead to use to start drawing because it's an in-between lead weight. It's both hard and soft, so you can create some really great lines. To get familiar with your pencils, if you want to take the time to do this, I recommend doing what's called value ramps. And that's just taking each of your pencils, whether it's your HB, your H, your 2H, your 2B, and going from one end of the paper to the next. And depending on if you're left or right-handed, if you're right-handed like me, I would work left to right with doing these value ramps. If you're left-handed, work left to right. And the reason why is as you do these, also, I want you guys to notice where I'm holding the pencil. I'm holding it on the back. It's completely fine to hold your pencil close to the tip, but that's usually the way when you're holding your pencil like this, it's to really get detailed lines. When you want to cover larger areas and you want to have looser strokes, I recommend you try holding your pencil back like where I am here. That will allow your wrist to really get these longer strokes that you can create. And these value ramps help also get you used to feeling the application of pressure. And what I'm doing is I'm starting with heavy pressure at the end. Now, not too much pressure that you break the lead, but just enough pressure where I can get really dark. And then I lift up on the pressure slowly as I go from one side of the page to the next. And what this is a good exercise, is you want to go from really dark down on this end to kind of like a middle gray here to completely white of the paper here. So when you do that, and I recommend practicing that because that'll get you also really loose as you're drawing, but it also gets you really familiar with how dark you can get with your particular pencils. So this one is that HB, like I said. Now let's take a look at our 2H. And let's do the same thing. I've grabbed the 2H, holding it all the way on the back of the pencil here, and applying heavy pressure. And then as I go across the page, I start lightening up and then go back. And you can I want to show you this real quick. And you can see this is pretty much how dark your 2H pencil can go. And you can see in comparison to the HB, just how much darker the HB can get. Now let's switch to a softer lead pencil. I'm going with the 4B here. Let's see, is it sharp enough? Let me sharpen it just a little bit.
So we actually have a question about pencil sharpness. Does the sharpness of the pencil affect the shades?
Yes, it does. That's a great question. You guys are on top of it. You're a little ahead of me. I was going to get to that. I mean, the tip is keep your pencils sharp, but also the way you use your pencils are important too. Yes, that fine point is really great for creating nice, thin, precise lines. But also, if you guys noticed, one of the things as I'm drawing, I'm doing these value ramps. I'm using the side of the pencil, the long side, rather than just the tip. So I'm holding it here, if you all can see. So it's flat against, let me turn my turn my, so you see where I'm holding it on the side. So the side is actually touching the paper. So that's how I get kind of like these nice broad strokes. So use that side of the pencil. I'll talk a little bit more about the pencil point here in a second. So you can see, I'm gonna go really dark here on this end. And you can see that. I mean, it's very apparent, like that you can see that this is much darker than the HB. And this is the 4B right here. And if I even go up to, let's grab this is the 8B. Yep, this is the 8B. I mean, this gets even darker. So again, you know, as a practice, for you to get familiar with these pencils, do these value ramps, and you can see it gets even darker as with the 8B. And one thing you'll probably also notice is the stroke itself on the side here. Let me go back and grab, where is my 4H? I'll grab the 2H since I see it, but when you make your stroke, it's there's not a lot of texture to this 2H because it's a harder lead, but then when you move up to softer leads, you'll see that the texture starts to come out even more. So you'll see here, like with the HB, the 4B, and the 8B here. Let's just mark that as an HB. I think this was a 2H, and this was the HB here. Well, you can see that it really picks up the grain because that soft lead, and that's part of the charm of drawing with graphite, is getting this texture. So we love this texture in graphite. That's what makes pencil drawing just wonderfully charming, is those types of marks right there. Okay.
And just, I think we just need one more quick recap of the what the HB and the 2H and that stands for, and the differences, and if they need an HB pencil for this drawing.
Yep. HB pencil. So what these letters, again, just to recap really quickly, the letters and the numbers that are associated with your pencils, as you see on there. Going back, H stands for hardness, B stands for blackness, and the number that's usually in front of one of those two letters refers to the relative hardness or softness of the H or the B. So in this case with an HB, it is both hard and soft. It's a great middleweight pencil. A 2H is a hard pencil, but as that number increases and it goes to like 4H, 6H, that means it's even harder. And with the B pencils, the lower the number, the harder it is. The higher the number, the softer it is. And also darker, the darker you can get with it. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Thank you.
Perfect. Great, of course. I noticed that somebody's calling out the Ebony Jet Black pencils. I love those pencils. They are great. I use those a lot when I go and do my figure drawing. It's a wonderful versatile pencil to use for sure. All right. Let's really quickly move into some drawing styles. I'm not going to cover all of them. I'm just going to cover a couple of the main drawing styles that are the most popular. The first one is crosshatch. And what crosshatch is where you use lines to create your values. So it's a series of lines. Some of you have probably heard about crosshatching, where you're overlapping series of lines to create your value. This is a technique that I use a lot in order to create texture, build up my values, and you can use this to build up your values really slowly, this type of technique. But that cross-hatching where it's, Some people like to do the cross hatching where the lines are perpendicular to each other, which is perfectly fine. Like I said, there is no right or no wrong way to execute drawing, honestly, or at least these techniques. I like to do mine when I'm doing my crosshatch. I just like to turn just a little bit to create kind of like this sort of pattern where you see, I'll just try to make these a little bit larger, where it's not completely perpendicular, but more like a 30-degree turn, going up and down like this, just to create. And once you keep layering and layering and layering, that helps to build up your values and also gives you that wonderful texture in your drawing. So that's the first technique, is cross hatching. The second technique is what we just call scrambling. And that, I'm going to sharpen my pencil here. I'm getting another HB pencil. And this is just what's called scrambling. And scrambling is just where you're doing this. And you're using pressure, so harder pressure here like this to create darker values, and then lighter pressure to create lighter value. And then you can also do circular motions to create values and build up your values. This is an HB pencil that I'm using, but this is another pretty popular technique. I mean, there's other things like where you can just do dots, and that's more of a pointillistic approach. That's usually better if you're going to be doing using like a fine marker or something. But there's also scribbling. But these are the two main techniques that I want to cover with this introduction class. All right, so let's talk about values real quick. Let's look at our page here. Let's look at our hummingbird. And what drawing is, especially black and white drawing as you're using your pencils, it's all values. Really, if you want to really think about it and get deep about it, there are no such things as lines. Yeah, we draw a line, but what makes that line is two values meeting. You have the value of the paper meeting one side of the pencil stroke, and then the other side being the value of the paper again. So in real life, there are no lines. It's all about light and dark. When we translate that to drawing, your paper is always going to be your lightest value. So going back to our friendly hummingbird here, what I want to look for is, where are my lightest values? So rather than just jumping in and starting to draw, I'm going to locate where my lightest values are, because that's what's going to be the color of the paper. And I kind of see it here along the bottom part of the cheek, and here on the neck. And also this spot right here by the eye, and then also there's a highlight in the eye. And I'm also going to want to locate my darkest values, because I know I don't want to get any darker than these darker values, which I spot right here in the eye. So those are my darkest values. So again, your lightest values are the color of your paper, and then just make sure that you're looking at these darker values here, and then how everything else relates to that. Okay. So as we start drawing our butterfly here, or butterfly, I'm sorry, our hummingbird here, what we want to look at the shapes that are being formed here. And that's usually how you want to start drawing something. So let's see if I can make sure that our butterfly is caught in here. So you can kind of see these shapes, the overall shapes that are being formed here within the butterfly. The main body is kind of like an oval shape. And Don't worry too much about proportions as you're doing your drawing, because that'll all come in time as you continue to practice. You'll get better with proportions. But as I'm looking at my hummingbird here, and I notice that it's an oval kind of shape to the body. So that's where I start. I start here in that center part, right there, with that oval shape to that body. And then I also look back here on the tail, and you can kind of see it's kind of like a triangular shape, right? Kind of this sharp point here on the tail. So that's what we do. We kind of draw. And again, proportions I'm not too worried about. What I'm looking at are all of these shapes. So there's that tail, right? We got that there. The triangular part of that tail there, the main body. And then I look up here and I look at this kind of oval shape for the head with like a point where the beak starts. It's almost like a trapezoid. So I start drawing here and create kind of like that trapezoid shape, as you can see. You see it there? How it goes like that. And then there's like a little bit of a right here where the neck is underneath the head, right in there, there's kind of a curve. So I can draw that in there. And then just to add in the beak, the thin beak, and it's just a thin line. So as you can see, I mean, that's where I'm starting, is just going in. I'm using the HB pencil to start with laying out all these foundational shapes. And then as we build out the wings, I mean, it's pretty obvious what the shape is for the wings. It's like this triangular, we have a couple of triangular shapes. I'm gonna start with that back. I'm gonna start with the back wing. And one of the things I'm taking notice of is this point here and where that converges. As we have the top of the head kind of comes down here, and that's where it kind of converges with this oval shape that we laid down for the body. So I'm going to create the curved shape of this somewhat triangle here. And again, it's not perfect. I mean, proportionally speaking, it's not about the same as I'm looking here. This might be a little bit thicker over here. But again, I'm not too worried about that at this point. And then now we have the other triangle, which is longer and skinnier for that other part of the wing. And I'm trying to see where this leading edge here along the back of the wing, where that terminates. And I see along the body here, it kind of comes to this point right here where that triangle I first drew meets the oval right there. So I can use that to help guide me with the back line of that wing. So you can see we're starting, we've got the beginning stages of our wonderful hummingbird. Let's finish off just the tail here where it has that thin point. It kind of comes down right there. So now we have our foundation of the hummingbird. So I laid that all out, and now I can start building out some of these details. And it all starts with laying down foundational values. So I'm going to go to and building up values, you want to do it slowly. One important tip is don't go too dark too fast. You want to build up your values slowly. So I'm starting with a hard lead because, again, as we saw when we did our value ramps, the harder lead doesn't make that too dark of a value. So I'm going to start, I'm going to start with the head, since that seems to be, of course, an important feature. And I want to make sure that I have time to show you how to build that out. I'm going to mark using this 2A or this H pencil roughly where the eye is. And again, I'm not worried if it's not in the exact right spot, because once we start building up the values, it's going to start looking like a hummingbird. And honestly, once we finish, you can just put this, throw away the the reference image, and no one ever knows that that's where you drew it from. They'll just be like, oh, that's a cool butterfly. Okay, so let's start building up these values within these feathers here. When you're drawing and making your marks, you always keep in mind the shape and your lines following the direction of that shape. So this kind of, the head here, we know it curves back into space like that. So my marks are going to follow that shape, because this helps to really push the illusion of dimension. So my marks are kind of going, and I'm using really soft pressure right now. I'm not doing too hard a pressure. It's just to get kind of like a foundation of value placed on the paper. And so again, looking at this, I'm reading this as it's going back into space. So I want my marks, again, to follow and flow in the direction that I'm seeing there. So I'm adding a little bit more value. I'm not going too dark. There's that highlight right here that I had called out as being the white of the paper. So I want to make sure that I leave that there and that I don't go over it, because I want that value to stay, the value of the paper to stay right there. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, you do, and you're like, oops, I want to get that out of there. Well, that's when you can take out your kneaded eraser and you can lift it up. And I made a little point with my kneaded eraser too, because this could work really well as a drawing tool. I'm just kind of lifting it up and out so that I still preserve that white of the paper there. So let's continue on. I'm building up my values slowly. So I lay down this foundational value. It's a little flatter here along that side of the cheek.
Hey, Nick, are you still using your HB pencil?
This is an H pencil.
H
Good
pencil,
question.
gotcha.
So this is the first pencil that I'm using to lay down a base foundation of values. Now I will I'll move in to my HB pencil. Let's sharpen it real quick. Having that sharp point is important, especially if you're going to do details with the tip, or if you're just going to use the side because you want a lot of surface area of your lead exposed to really get the nice broader strokes. Okay, so again, I'm going to start building up and developing some of these middle values. I'm going to come in here, and you notice it's lighter here along this part of the cheek, a little bit darker in here. So I'm going to leave this in here, that part of that cheek. I'm not going to go over that. I'm just going to go over the rest of the hummingbird's head. And I'm building up these, following the contour of the body, or at least the shapes that I see, and I'm going to build this up slowly. So it's a little bit darker along the edge, and then it gets lighter as we go in towards the head, towards the eye. So a little bit more pressure here along the bottom of the hummingbird's neck or head, and going up. And then also the same here along this top portion of the head. Darker along the outside. So I'm applying more pressure to the outside and then lifting up and being lighter as I go towards the eye or the middle of the head. See, this is a little bit darker in here along this part of the cheek. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker in there as well. So you can kind of see it starting to take shape and take form, but it's still relatively flat. We need to build up some darker values to really help that the form build up. So I'm putting my HB down. So that was my HB, and now I'm going to move over to my, do I have my 2B? No, I have a B. So, oh, no, my 2B's up here. Let's sharpen. Oh, it's ready to sharpen. Okay.
Hey, Nick.
Yeah.
So someone said that when they draw, they tend to turn their paper. Does that affect anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry?
So when they're drawing, they move their paper around. Does
Yeah,
that
you can move the
affect
paper.
anything?
I mean, if you move, if you tilt, are you talking about tilting your paper, or is it the paper?
Yeah, I think they mean like turning their paper around. Yeah.
Yeah, you can tilt it, or you can turn it if you want to, so that you can. I mean, if you have a better, if it helps you to make a better mark, you can definitely do that to turn that paper.
Cool.
I do that sometimes as well. One thing I forgot to mention is that lightweight copier paper comes in real handy if you have your drawing, and let's say I want to go back over here and I want to start drawing the wing. I put a piece of paper down underneath my hand so that as I'm doing my marks, I don't smear the drawing that's underneath, that would be underneath it. Because if I just start drawing without protecting the paper, my hand as it's moving is going to smear around all of the graphite that I have laid down.
Great tip.
Okay. All right, so let's put that there. And going back with my 2B, I'm going to go back to the edge here and put a little bit more pressure. And I'm, again, trying not to go too dark, too fast. And trying to make it look darker from this outer edge. And that really helps to push the form to make it look like it's rounded. Let's get underneath the beak here a little bit. And actually, let's go back into the beak, grabbing my H again. And there, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is a highlight that is along the beak here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down, because it's not entirely white. It's not the white of the paper. So I'm going to lay down a foundation of the H first, softly, put that there, and then I'm going to go back, get my HB, and I'm going to do it a little bit darker along the outer edges, but not venture too far all the way across, and leave that thin line, if you guys can see, to create that kind of lighter area that's right in here along the beak. That way, as you can see, it helps to create that cylindrical form there along the beak. And let's get back in there. And then I could go back in with my 2B and then get those darker spots that are along the bottom edge of the beak, right in there. Like that. Okay, so one of the things I want to get we have 10 minutes. So all these little feather details that are happening in here, those are also all just values. And how to get those values on top of here, I'm going to show you how to quickly create the illusion of those the feather details. I'm going to find a darker pencil. I'm going to go with my 4B here that I have, and you can I don't know if you all can see this, but the feathers are just like almost like spots that you can see in there. And that's all you really need to do is that and they go in a pattern, and you kind of want to follow the pattern that you're seeing there. And again, it's like, I'm not worried about complete and total accuracy. I'm not worried about copying this thing 100%, but to create the illusion of those feathers, I'm going in there with this 4B pencil, and then I'm making essentially just dots in a row as I'm following here what I see, and staggering them as they go back. And this starts building up some of that feather detail that you can see. And where you need to, you could add, like right down here where you see that there's that line that's going in there. I'm going to switch back to my B. No, that's my H. I'm going to switch back actually to my 2B, And then I can create lines in there for that extra added detail. So the technique that I'm pretty much employing here is scrambling. I'll make this a little bit darker, and I'd spend a lot of time, just, you know, FYI, spend a lot of time looking at your reference as you're drawing. And it takes a lot of practice, but you keep your hand moving while you're looking back and forth from your drawing to your reference image. So my head is not moving. I'm just using my eyes to look back and forth from my drawing to my reference. I mean, some people, you can have it up in front of you if that's more helpful, like you can prop it up and then you can just look up and down. But if I put it in front, I'd be blocking in front of my camera on my computer. But so I'm constantly going back and forth. Let's deal with this eye real quick. So with the eye, it's definitely a lot darker than the rest of the surrounding values in the head. So one of the things I want to first mark out, because there is a highlight, and you can see it right there. It's like a little pinpoint highlight. I want to exaggerate this. I don't want this within penciling and or within this technique of scrambling that we're using. It's really hard to get some of those details like that. So I just want to make sure that I kind of mark it off with a little circle where I think that highlight is. And I'm going to leave it there. I don't know if y'all can see it. Let me pull this up. But I created a little circle where that I believe that highlight is. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to start with my HB pencil. And I'm just going to go in with, and I'm not going to invade that little circle that I made. And I'm using medium pressure here. I'm not going too hard, because one of the things you want to do is if you go too hard, you're going to crush your paper. And you don't want to do that, because it makes it, when you crush your paper and really drive that lead into your paper surface, it becomes really difficult to erase. So I am just going to go around, and then to make it even darker, I'm going to get my softer lead weight, which this is an 8B. And then I'm just going to go over the top of that HB. And I'm going to do it around the outside and just a little bit underneath the highlight. Because it's not like it's one giant black eye. It's really, you know, it has the iris. It's a little bit darker around the outside of the eye. Let's go in, add a few more details. We got about 5 minutes. I grabbed here my 4B, and you can see that there's some values in here that are a little bit darker. I'm going to go in there and kind of put those in using really soft pressure, allow the pencil to really give me that texture of the paper. And this is it's very much a painterly technique, but it's one of the easiest to start with. Cross-hatching can get a little frustrating, so that's why I'm going with the scrambling here. And I'm going back up here along the top edge of the head and building up that values. If I want it darker here, I'm going to grab that 8B. So you see, I'm using all of the pencils in tandem. I am not using just one pencil. That's how you really create a drawing with layers, and it becomes more dynamic rather than just using one pencil to draw with. I mean, if I'm just sketching out ideas, I'll use one pencil, like an HB pencil for that, or one of my mechanical pencils. But if I want to create a drawing that is like this, that's finished and dimensional, I'm definitely going to use multiple weight pencils and use them in tandem. So with the time that I have remaining, let's start tackling this body in here really quickly. And I'm going to go back again to my H. So I grab my H pencil, and I'm going to lay down a foundation of value. So I'm not even worried about all these little details yet and all these other values that are in there, because they're going to come with the other pencils. So I'm going to start, and again, I want to follow the contour of the shapes that I'm seeing. So this is more, again, I know that it's kind of going back into space like this. It's kind of curving. So let me turn the page. That was a wonderful tip that one of our guests called out. This will allow me to get the marks going in the direction that I want them to go. So building up light value. And then I'll grab my HB. We got a couple minutes left. Grab my HB. And I really haven't spent a lot of time sharpening my pencils, but make sure that you constantly sharpen your pencils, because that'll definitely help you with your marks. So as you can see, and then if I want to get those details of those other feathers, I'm grabbing my 4B, and they're just they're almost like rectangular spots. Like that. And again, let's go back to our eraser. That went too dark, too fast. I got my kneaded eraser, squish it down a little bit. You can get in there, make a little point on it like that. And then you can kind of pull that up and pull out that darkness so that the value isn't as intense. All right.
Hey Nick, so before everybody goes, can you hold up your finished drawing of your hummingbird so that they can see all the intricate details that you had?
I don't have a finished hummingbird in front of me. I'm sorry. You can. I do have drawing a finished hummingbird that is on my Instagram for this class. I don't have it here in front of me. I'm sorry. But yeah, you can go to my Instagram. It's Nick_Mikesell, and you can find it there. Let me write that down for you.
Gotcha.
If y'all want to check it out. We'd love to hear from you guys. Be sure to tag your artwork too that you create. Made It With Michaels, hashtag Made It With Michaels. We'd love to see what y'all are doing on social media. I will be hosting another class coming up on the 24th that will be a more advanced drawing techniques. So it's not going to be this beginner class. So we'll be using some different materials and looking at some different, more advanced techniques. I hope you all have fun. Thanks for joining us today. It's been my pleasure to host this class for you all. Hope to see you at Michael's someday.
Yeah, everybody had a great time. They said he had some great tips for them. And the hummingbird that you have with you is just a picture, right? It's something you printed out. Okay. Yeah, they were thinking that was your finished hummingbird.
No, I'm sorry. This is a image that I printed out from the internet. Again, I do recommend for beginners to use reference images rather than just strictly working from your memory or straight out of your head. Of course, that's perfectly fine. I mean, if you just want to doodle random stuff, of course, do that. But if you really want to learn how to draw things from nature, draw what you like. If it's donuts, draw donuts. If it's dragons, I don't know, look at some other artists with dragons and draw those and see what they have. Copy theirs.
Gotcha. Well, I think that's it. Everybody's just saying thank you so much, and they'll see you next time.
Sounds great. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Take care now.